What's going on out there? So here we are. Got my assistant here. We're going to poke some holes in some oyster bags. We are going to initiate our oyster blocks, right, son? That's right. He's got the, yeah, you got the knife. And so we're just going to show you how to initiate the oyster blocks. It's super easy. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. What do you think, bud? Yeah? So a few things with oysters is it's important to know what kind of oyster it is, obviously. These are blue oyster. I mostly use blue oyster. The blue oysters are nice because they're delicious. They're beautiful. They grow really well. And unlike so many other oysters, they're not quite as aggressive to fruit. Now, aggressive to fruit can be awesome. Like a pink oyster, a phoenix oyster, an elm oyster, all those are going to fruit when they are colonized, whether you like it or not. They'll start fruiting in the bag. The nice thing about the blue oyster is it likes to be a little colder. And for me, I'm like constantly doing the grow room shuffle. So it's kind of nice for me on the blue oyster because I can delay them a little bit. These are lab grown, so I don't have pre-holes. If you're growing in the same style, small bags in a pasteurization room, you can put holes in them. The advantage though to maybe not is if you're pasteurizing them in somewhere that might run the risk of insects getting in, I just leave them without holes. If you have a really good spawning station, I used to grow them in modified laundry baskets, which was awesome, and pasteurized, and they would be pre-holed, and which means that you don't have as much leeway time, you don't have as much room to wiggle. They will start fruiting a lot faster because there's air exposed. And that's basically how a lot of mushrooms work. Oysters are like this, lion's mane are like this, maitake are like this, reishi are like this, in that once they've colonized, so all the mycelium has grown through this whole thing, you see how it's nice and colonized everywhere, is it's ready to fruit, and you just want to put a hole in. And so that hole will be a point of moisture loss, oxygen would be the main thing. And in these ones, obviously light is getting to all of them. If you're growing in like black bags, light would get to that zone too, and it would be the spot where they're signaled to fruit. So that's basically all we're gonna do to initiate these blue oysters is we're gonna put a hole in the bag. Now, the main thing with holes, don't put too many holes. A lot of times people are like, oh, I'm gonna put so many holes because I'm gonna get so many mushrooms. Basically, the rule of thumb is this block of mycelium is going to produce the same amount of flesh in the form of mushrooms, no matter how many holes you put in. So if you put in 10 holes, you're gonna get 10 small mushrooms, whereas if you put in 2 holes, you're gonna get 2 big bouquets, big clusters, and they will probably equal the same poundage, all right? Does that make sense? So in the end of the day, you're actually gonna get more mushrooms with less holes. The reason why is because it's gonna give you a second flush, a third flush, a fourth flush, depending on how many flushes you wanna do, which is like each round of mushrooms. And so if you just put 2 holes, that's only 2 points where the block will kind of dry out a little bit, right? If you have 10 holes, it's going to dry and you're actually not going to produce much on your subsequent flushes. The nice thing for me is I'm doing this commercially, and so if I put 4 holes, my cluster is going to be a little smaller. It might be nice for a quarter-pound bag. 2 big holes are nice for a half-pound bag, and also at the end of the day, again, less holes, more mushrooms. You could even do 1 if you're growing at home. Put 1 big, not big hole, but 1 hole in here. You get 1 big cluster, and it is beautiful when you watch it pull out. I've pulled out a 5-pound cluster before, all emanating from 1 little point. It was super cool. So just play with it. The other thing is you don't want to make your tool too big. I actually usually do a cross. So let me just demonstrate. This has a nice even amount of mycelium. If you have like more dense pockets of more white, you're going to want to go there. If you just kind of put a slit, it's going to work. I usually like to use razor blades because it's sharper, it's easier to cut without messing around. It actually winds up being faster. I've already alcohol sprayed this earlier, and I've actually used it for a few blocks. I used to spray between every block. I think that's overkill. Just spray once. As long as you're not setting it down on the floor in between blocks, you're usually okay. I'm gonna do 4 in this, so 1 on each side. You know, play with the varying size of holes. I just do crosses. I find that's enough. I'm gonna do a cross on all 4 points. You can see I am disturbing the mycelium a little bit. Try not to, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. A little technique to be able to try to not disturb is to like kind of cut up. You see how I can cut up, pull the plastic away, and then that's way less disturbance. Right here, do the same thing, kind of pull up. It's a little more time consuming, but That way your mycelium doesn't have to regrow. But again, I used to be like super paranoid about this, but it doesn't matter. So there's 4 points. I'm gonna put my razor blade in a way that doesn't mess it, and then I'm gonna push on down the air, fold it over so it covers up the filter, and then I'll put it right down on that shelf. All right, so now it's got 4 points, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, you wanna make sure you have room around it for the mushrooms to come. And then, yeah, it's folded over so there's not a lot of other oxygen getting into it. It's good to have assistance, all right? You know, we have different levels here, so it's good to have different size people helping you, because you can do the bottom rack, right? You want to do the bottom rack? Here. Yeah, you want to put one there? Right there? It's a good idea. Yeah. Enjoy it. The reason why these are lab grown, if you're at home, usually you want to pasteurize. The reason why these are lab grown is because these, and I'm going to have a whole video about this, is recycled substrate. So every single one of these bags has already fruited shiitakes. I rebroke those up, sterilized them, and then put oysters on it. So pretty awesome. So this substrate is, you know, giving again. There's, you know, you can see the oyster mushrooms had no problem finding a food source through here, releasing different enzymes, different metabolites to take advantage of this substrate again, which is even making it more soft and delicious for the worms down the line. So it's all about using this as much time as possible. So yeah, we gonna cut some holes.